Never, ever pay full price for a watch. And really, this goes for almost anything in life. Never pay full price unless you have absolutely no choice. This is going to be a video that might piss off a lot of people, but I need to say it. It's something that I say in a lot of my videos, and I hope that you guys do not take it the wrong way. For those of you out there who have paid retail for a watch or have paid over retail for a watch, but bear with me and listen to my reasons. And like I said, I am open to all suggestions and comments, so please tell me what you think in the comments below. Of course, I always want to hear from you guys. So getting right into it, there is a markup on everything, as you guys know. Whether it's cars, clothing, houses, even food, really anything you purchase in a store or online has a markup to it. Anything. And with watches, there is no exception to this rule. In fact, watches have some incredibly high markups, some of the highest markups on products that you can buy. However, business is business, and I always say this, business is business. So I never knock anyone for making money. In fact, just the opposite. Money needs to be made, and that's how the economy works, and I completely 100% agree with that. However, at the same time, I won't overpay for anything, and in fact, I'm even adverse to paying retail prices for anything, specifically because all of those markups that I mentioned before. I don't want to sound like one of those commercials that probably ran before this video. However, the AD is the middleman. The manufacturer is making a ton of money on their watches, and they mark up as much as they can, and that can be anywhere between 25% and 45%. That's the manufacturer. The manufacturer then turns around and sells that watch to an authorized dealer, and those ADs need to make money. It costs a lot of money to have a retail shop. Employees, that bottle of San Pellegrino or champagne that they offer you when you are browsing their watches before you even buy anything, or if you're even going to buy anything. So again, you have another 25 to 45% markup on top of the markup that the brand is actually making. So now we are talking about a 50 to 85% markup. That is a huge margin, depending of course on the brand and on the watch, which means to me there should be a lot of room for negotiation, especially on watches. Also, it's in that same margin that allows the gray market to operate. If you really think about it, they offer tons of big discounts on watches, and that's because of that huge markup. That huge margin allows gray market dealers to actually exist. That's where they come from, just in that margin. And what happens is, when watches aren't being sold by the ADs, they aren't being sold by the manufacturer, they dump them to gray market dealers, and those gray market dealers then take the actual discounts that they've taken from these manufacturers. If they're directly from the manufacturer or directly from an AD, they take those markups and they pass that savings on to you. They're still making money on those watches. So a really good example of that, I hate to call out my really good friend and buddy, Rock the Watch, Matt Stingray over at the Rock the Watch channel. Definitely check out his channel. Great channel, really great content. He tells the story on many occasions about how he bought one of his first watches, and that was an Omega Seamaster 300. He bought it from an AD, went in with his wife, and they bought it right then and there. He paid around $6,000 for that watch, including all the tax and everything like that. So he then turned around, and as he got to know how the market works and how gray market works and things like that, he actually discovered that that exact same watch is available on places like Joma Shop for around $4,000. So there's a $2,000 savings that he was able to get, or would have been able to get, if he just looked online at some of these gray market dealers. Now really, when you think about that, that is where the gray market lives. And if they're able to make money on that $4,000 price, what kind of profit margins are they making at the AD at the full retail price? If they're making money at $4,000, they're making a ton of money at $6,000. And in fact, if Matt had walked into that retail store, that AD, that local Omega AD, if he actually bargained with them, they would have moved on that $6,000 price, and they would have given him maybe even $1,000 off that price. And since he didn't, he missed out. But then he could have went to the gray market and even there's some gray market dealers that will actually negotiate on their gray market prices. And then forget about the used market, because that's a whole different story. You could definitely get this watch for even cheaper from a reputable dealer on the used market. So it's a lot to consider, especially when you're buying watches. So that's why I always say, do not pay retail. Definitely do not pay over retail for anything. And I include Rolex in that. And I know a lot of people love Rolex and they will pay overpriced for them. And I would never do that. I love Rolex just as much as anybody else. But it is the fact that I will not pay over retail that keeps me from actually getting one, unfortunately. Now, one other thing I want to bring up here, and this is a sort of a thorn in a lot of people's side, and I know this will be a controversial thing I'm going to say, but Microbrands. A Microbrand can actually make a watch with an ETA movement or a Solita movement, automatic or hand winding, depending on what you're looking for. And they can make those watches for well under $1,000. They give you 300 meters water resistance or whatever you're looking for. It could be a dress watch, a pilot's watch, a field watch, or a dive watch. They make them all, and you can get Swiss-made ones. You can get ones with Swiss-made movements. However you want, they have them, and they could be under $1,000. While major brands like Breitling, Tag Heuer, Longines, they are making similarly spec'd watches with very similar movements in them, and they are charging in upwards of $3,000, $4,000, and $5,000. And yes, there are major quality differences, of course, between those heritage brands and Microbrands, as I mentioned. There's, of course, the brand heritage to actually consider as well. So they are charging more for that, and that is an inherent actual value in those watches. So I cannot knock that, and that is definitely something that I actually am aware of and agree with. However, those differences, are they worth thousands and thousands of dollars? Some would argue that it can be justified, as I just mentioned, and I would actually agree, like I said, under a lot of circumstances. That doesn't mean that these watches with the heritage, with that brand recognition, that there isn't a lot of room for negotiation. In other words, if they're able to sell those watches again at a higher margin than obviously Microbrands, and there's a lot of inherent value in those, but it's less tangible, it's less obvious to the everyday consumer, then there's definitely room for negotiation. Now, I'm not saying that you should buy a Breitling for the price that you buy a Microbrand. Absolutely not. Definitely not 100%. A Microbrand should definitely be cheaper, but I'm saying that there is a little bit of room in their profit margins that you are able to work in. And that is because there is obviously money that they're working into that price, that they're taking into account their heritage and their fit finishing quality, that level of quality over other brands. And that's just an observation and something that I'm just trying to point out. But I'm a fan of Microbrands, and I'm obviously a fan of these major brands that are heritage, with brand recognition, with brand heritage, and I think that those are amazing brands, and I obviously spend my money there as well. If you watch any of my collection videos, my State of the Collection videos, you will see I definitely spend a lot of money in those arenas, but definitely something to consider, especially when you're out in the market and you're buying watches. If you're a collector, and especially if you're buying your first watch, you should definitely pay attention to this video, because someone like Rock the Watch, if he had watched this video, he probably would have not bought that Omega. He probably would have checked out the gray market, learned a little bit more about it, and made the better decision by buying it through a gray market. Now, if you watch his videos, he is all about the gray market. He loves Joma Shop. He loves other, gray market dealers, and that's where he goes. So a really interesting way of thinking about it, in my opinion. A lot of people will go crazy about this. However, I really think, and this is a way that I actually, it's something that I preach and I practice. So I definitely practice this. There are very few watches that I actually go out and pay full retail for. And that is a very, very rare instance when I do that. So tell me what you think in the comments below. I want to hear from you guys. I definitely think this is a very interesting topic. A lot of controversy here. It's sort of like the video that I did where I told you guys not to actually service your watches, because I don't think you should service your watches until they break. This is sort of that same realm. a little bit on the border of annoying some people, and a lot of people will agree with me at the same time. So tell me in the comments below. I want to hear from you guys. Please don't take offense to what I'm saying. This is just my opinion, of course. Please also don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. It is super helpful for the channel, and I very much appreciate it. Please follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is WatchChrisBlog. I have some links in the description. Those links are to Amazon. If you click those links and buy anything, it helps support the channel. It does not cost you anything extra. However, I very much appreciate it. Anyway, thank you for logging on, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.